They say every soldier gets sized up the second they step into a new post. Maybe it's the way you walk, or how you carry your gear. Maybe it's just the quiet ones they overlook. Either way, it took all of 5 minutes for Captain Rourke to decide I needed a shooting lesson. "Let me teach you how to shoot," he said, like he was offering a favor. I nodded once, kept my face flat. Rourke was fresh from a non-combat billet, more textbook than trigger pull, but he wore command like armor. I didn't argue. I didn't tell him I had 39 confirmed kills logged in my own handwriting. I didn't tell him about the field commendations that never made it past battalion. I just said, "Yes, sir." 3 weeks later, someone higher up found my file. A Navy Special Operations captain, one of those rare officers who still read the paperwork. He saw the kill count, the after-action confirmations, the range scores that broke records and got buried. He asked a single question: why is the best marksman in this whole AO pretending she can't shoot? My name's Staff Sergeant Emery Cade. I'm 29, and if you passed me on a base, you probably wouldn't remember. 5'4", quiet. I don't carry myself like I'm owed space. Most people forget I was there. I've been stationed at Camp Kimber in eastern Raqqa province for 4 months now, attached to a joint Army-Marine reconnaissance outfit. My official job? Liaison and sniper augment. But unofficially, I hadn't been pulled for a mission in over 2 weeks. Not after Rourke's little classroom offer made the rounds. They started calling me the Captain's Project. The joke was I was being retrained. Nobody said it outright, but I could see the shift. My name wasn't requested anymore. Briefings passed over me like I wasn't even seated. Funny thing is, I learned to shoot from someone who never cared about ranks or medals. My grandfather, Wyatt Cade, ran cattle up in northern Utah, a Marine sniper in Vietnam. He taught me on the same rifle he carried over there, a beat-up M40 he'd re-barreled himself. By the time I was 15, I could hit a groundhog at 500 meters using nothing but iron sights and breath control. He used to say, "The loud ones miss." Then he'd hand me a box of .308 and tell me to aim small. When he died, I got 2 things from him: his rifle and a torn piece of paper with his confirmed count, 16. He'd written it in pencil, light and precise. I folded that paper and kept it through boot, through sniper school, through 2 deployments. It reminded me that legacy doesn't need applause. I joined up at 21, after finishing a math degree from a school no one's heard of. I didn't want a desk job. I wanted to serve. My recruiter thought I was a waste of intellect. I thought he talked too much. It took me a year to land a sniper slot. I graduated second in my class. Never mentioned it again. Kandahar was my first deployment. I got attached to a recon platoon running night raids. 6 months, 21 confirmed kills. All clean, all ranged. My spotter back then, Sergeant Franco, called me the Scalpel. He put me in for a medal. The request died in admin purgatory. Never got a reason. Second deployment, different story, different unit. No one knew who I was. First mission briefing, the XO thought I was the interpreter. I corrected him once. He laughed. After that, I just shut up and did my job. It was easier to stay invisible. But now, here at Kimber, the ghosts had caught up. Rourke's offer spread fast. "Let me teach you how to shoot." Like it was generous. Like I didn't spend my nights poring over range data and heat mirage models. Like I hadn't built wind charts from scratch during monsoons. The worst part? I didn't care about the insult. I cared that it worked. Suddenly, I was just the quiet girl with the rifle she never used. That changed when a tasking came down from a SEAL unit operating near the Tigris border. High-value target. Long-range interdiction. They needed a shooter. The request came with a note. Send your best. No preferences. No politics. Just results. Command pulled the files. They looked at scores, confirmations, instructor notes, and then they found mine. And the numbers made them stop. "Why didn't you speak up?" the operations major asked. I shrugged. Nobody asked. That night I sat outside my bunk with my grandfather's paper in my hand. 16, smudged from the years. I'd passed it long ago, but I never stopped needing it. I remembered the last words he said to me before he went. "Still shooting?" he asked. "Yes." "Still getting better?" "I'm trying." He smiled. "You're past trying. I can tell." Tomorrow, I'd be flying north to a patrol base with a team that didn't know me yet. But they would, and I wouldn't need to explain anything. The MH-60 touched down just before sunrise, blades kicking dust over the landing zone. I stepped out into heat that clung to your skin like regret. The base was little more than a few concrete bunkers and a satellite dish tethered to the side of a hill. SEALs liked it that way, minimal, mobile, untraceable. Waiting for me was Captain Nolan Graves. Navy, mid-40s, with silver at his temples and an expression like he'd already seen the worst version of every situation. He didn't offer a handshake, just looked me over and said, "You're Cade?" "Yes, sir." "I read your file." 39 confirmed? "Yes, sir." Documented by spotter logs and after-action corroboration. He held my eyes a beat longer, then handed me a folder. Targets named Mansour Baysar. Taliban financier. Moves between compounds like clockwork. We tracked him west of here. Intel says he's there now. But that window's tight. I flipped through the photos. Satellite captures. Thermal overlays. The compound sat in a basin surrounded by open terrain. No approach cover. No elevation. Except for a ridgeline 1,800 meters out, rising behind scrub brush and boulders. Graves tapped the map. "Only shot we've got is from here. One chance. Then he's gone." I nodded, already working through calculations in my head. One of the SEALs, a lieutenant commander, squinted at me from across the table. "She Army." Graves didn't look up. "She's the best shooter in theater. That's all you need to know." He walked me through weather forecasts, drone coverage, and activity timelines. I asked about morning thermals, valley wind vectors, the incline angle. He answered everything. And by the time we were done, the skeptical looks were gone. Everyone in the room could feel it. I wasn't here to observe. We stepped off at 0400. Graves, 2 SEALs, a spotter named Knox, and me. The climb up the ridgeline was brutal, but quiet. Knox didn't talk much, which suited me. He'd done extreme range work before. His rangefinder was already hanging from his chest by the time we hit position. I unpacked my rifle, a modified M2010N, 300 Win Mag, custom glass, cold-bore log taped to the buttstock. I'd made 6 shots past 1,500 with it. This would be my longest. Knox ranged the compound. 1,813 sloped. Winds dancing through the cut. We started building the solution. Temp, pressure, humidity. I checked my datasheet for the angle cosine. The dope came back with heavy drop. Over 80 MOA elevation, moderate windage left. Then the radio crackled. "Target is mobile." Repeat, Baysar is outside. Moving toward the east vehicle. Knox called the wind. Left 3. Hold for gust. I went into my breathing cycle. 5 seconds in, 5 out. Slow. Purposeful. My pulse dropped. I felt my hands settle. I found him in the glass. Tan shawl, steady walk. Unaware he was seconds from disappearing. Knox's voice was quiet. Hold, send it." I fired. The shot took just under 4 seconds to land. In that time, I stayed on the scope. Watched the round drop like a stone guided by a whisper. Watched it strike center mass. Watched him collapse. No need for a second shot. Knox keyed the mic, target down. Confirmed. Graves stood a few feet behind me, silent. He watched the compound erupt. Men scattering, shouting, trying to find cover from a shooter they couldn't see. He lowered his binoculars, looked at me. That was clean. I cleared the rifle. "Thank you, sir." He crouched beside me. "Why the hell have you been sitting on a bench for 2 weeks?" I didn't look up. "Because people see what they expect to see, sir." He was quiet for a long second, then said, "Not anymore." We exfiltrated by noon. The hello ride back was short, silent, and brimming with the kind of tension that follows clean kills. Graves didn't say much until we touched down. Then he told me to clean up and report to the operations tent at 1400 sharp. I walked back to my quarters through the dust and sweat of Camp Kember. Nobody paid much attention. To them, I was still the quiet army sergeant who carried a rifle she never used. That was going to change. At 13:58, I stepped into ops. Graves was already waiting, arms folded. Beside him were Captain Rourke. Yes, that Rourke, and the battalion operations officer who'd spent the last month skipping my name on every sniper request. Graves didn't waste time. He dropped my personnel file on the table with a hard thump and started flipping through it like it was a courtroom exhibit. "Let's start with qualification scores," he said, pointing to a line highlighted in yellow. "Expert ratings in every live-fire drill since Fort Holloway. Top 3 percentile in sniper school. Cold bore hits at 1,200 meters during training in the Mojave." He looked up at Rourke. "And you offered to teach her how to shoot." Rourke's face went crimson. "Sir, Don't, Graves said sharply. Don't try to explain. You didn't read her file. You didn't ask. You assumed. He turned back to the ops officer. These are her confirmed engagements. He tapped another folder, thicker than the last. Every kill signed off by spotters, corroborated by ISR when available, documented in full. He pulled up a tablet and opened a folder of drone footage, freeze frames from past operations. Each one showed impact points, ranging overlays, and timestamps. Then he brought up the latest. Basar, caught mid-step, dropping like a sack of stone. He turned the screen toward Rourke. That's what a 1,000-yard stare looks like, from the other end. Nobody spoke. I stood a step back, watching Rourke fidget with his cuffs, watching the ops officer try not to meet my eyes. Next time, Graves said, calm but sharp, you pass her over, it better be because there's someone better, not because she didn't speak loud enough for you to notice. He closed the file and slid it back to me. Dismissed, Staff Sergeant. I nodded. Yes, sir. Outside, the sun hadn't moved, but something else had. The way people looked at me shifted, not in fear, not in awe, but with a recognition I hadn't felt in years. That night, I sat under the awning outside my barracks and unfolded the old piece of paper again. The pencil was faint now, his handwriting almost gone from time and sweat and sand. My number had passed as long ago, but it was never about that. He was the reason I didn't flinch when men in polished boots tried to tell me what I was or wasn't. He was the reason I'd kept still. But now the stillness had ended. Graves requested I stay on with the SEAL unit. Not as an augment. Not as a guest. As part of the strike rotation. 4-man fire team. My own spotter. They'd seen the shot. They didn't need convincing. I accepted without ceremony. They updated my file that night. 39 became 40. And I never had to mention the classroom offer again. Being folded into the SEAL unit felt like joining a machine already mid-cycle. No greetings, no speeches, just insertion. But that suited me fine. I didn't come for praise. I came to work. Knox, the spotter from the Basar op, was assigned as my full-time partner. He was tall, lean, and spoke with the kind of drawl that made you underestimate how fast his brain was moving. He didn't say much during the briefing, just nodded at me once and said, let's get to it. We didn't need to talk. Not much. Not in this line of work. By week's end, we'd made 2 more engagements. One at 1,400 meters, the other at 1,620, both confirmed, both surgical. The kind of kills that left no doubt. No standoff, just sudden endings. The unit started treating me differently. Not with ceremony. These were SEALs, not parades. But they moved when I moved. They deferred to my judgment on glassing positions. One of them, a chief named Mason, even started asking for my wind reads. That was new. We took one mission down near the Tigris floodplain. Intel flagged an arms courier using goat tracks as supply routes. The convoy moved at dusk, no headlights, 2 SUVs and a truck buried in brush netting. We set up on a rocky shelf 1,100 meters above, south-facing. Knox read the wind. 2 left. Mild mirage. I glassed the trail and saw them. 2 in the lead vehicle, both armed. The one in back had a radio pressed to his mouth. He moved like a man who thought he was invisible. I chambered the round. Primary's the rear SUV. Passenger side. Knox nodded. Whenever you're ready. The trigger broke clean. Less than 2 seconds later, the passenger door blew open, not from force, but from the deadweight slumping against it. His rifle clattered on the rocks. Chaos followed, but not for long. Another round. Driver dropped. Then a third, taken from the edge of the brake pad, where one stepped out with an RPG half-raised. I took his shoulder. Non-lethal. He'd survive. We needed the intel. By the time the team moved in, it was done. 3 shots. No wasted motion. No missed cues. Back at base, Graves logged the engagement personally. He shook his head as he typed. I've seen some clean shooters, Cade. But you. He trailed off, then reset. You plan every shot like you're laying out a chessboard. I didn't answer. It wasn't chess to me. It was arithmetic. Wind. Range. Drop. Drag. Time of flight. Impact zone. Add it all up, and death becomes a solvable equation. Knox once asked me during downtime why I didn't speak much, even now. I said, because noise doesn't help me shoot straighter. He grinned. Fair. I cleaned my rifle that night with the same care I'd used since my first deployment. Cotton swabs. Or snake. Mirror check on the crown. Not because it needed it, because it deserved it. Each round fired is a trust exercise between you and the machine. Each kill is a line added to a file that doesn't tell the whole story. But they were seeing now. I didn't need to announce my presence anymore. I just had to show up. We got the call late. A QRF request from a pinned-down recon team out near Alhara Ridge. Their radio traffic was jammed, but one burst made it through. Under fire, surrounded, no sniper support. Coordinates came through on a cracked channel, barely legible. Graves looked at me across the ops table. "It's your ridge, Cade." I nodded once. No debate. No backup plan. They had 4 SEALs caught in a kill box, and I was the only one in range who could reach them in time. Knox and I packed fast, stripped to essentials. The M2010, a backup optic, spotter scope, kestrel, hydration, and just enough MREs to keep our brains firing. The insertion bird took us within 3 clicks of the ridge, then dropped low and fast. We humped the rest, legs burning, silence thick between us. By the time we got to the overlook, the sun was crawling down the far ridge, casting long shadows over the valley. I belly crawled to the lip and glassed the canyon below. It was worse than the call said. The recon team had no cover. Hostile positions flanked them in a rough horseshoe. Small arms fire pinged off rock. I counted 6 hostiles with visible weapons, 2 with scopes. Maybe more in the shadows. Knox dropped beside me. Got wind cross at 8, drifts moderate. I checked the kestrel. Wind shear was surging down the draw, a pulse effect that could throw a round off by inches at this range. Distance, 1,220 meters. Slight drop. Temp falling. Pressure high. I dialed in. Knox whispered, "Left flank shooter. Upper boulder. He's got eyes." I breathed once. Twice. Fired. The shooter dropped. A perfect neck shot. No scream. Just a thud and a rifle falling from limp fingers. The valley shifted instantly. I worked the bolt, reacquired. Center cluster, back of the formation. Squad lead. Fired. Chest shot. Clean. Rounds started scattering wildly from the hostiles now. No more coordinated fire. They were confused. Afraid. Trying to find the ghost on the ridge. They couldn't. That's the point. I wasn't just killing. I was dismantling. Each shot forced them out of cover, made them retreat, made them show hands they didn't mean to play. Knox called them, and I took them, one by one, in the order that made the rest collapse faster. We cleared the field in 8 shots. 6 confirmed Kia, 2 wounded and fleeing. The recon team scrambled for extraction. We stayed on overwatch until their bird dusted off. Knox didn't speak for a minute. Then, "They're going to talk about that one." I just nodded. Graves was waiting when we got back. He had that look, the one between disbelief and pride. No one even saw where the rounds were coming from. The SEALs thought it was drones until the second body dropped. He looked me dead in the eye. "I don't know what they told you when you joined, Cade. But whatever it wasn't enough." I didn't answer. Just unpacked my rifle, wiped it down, and logged the new kills. 48 now. 6 more than when this started. Every single one clean. Every single one forgotten the moment the brass starts handing out medals. But that's not why I'm here. My grandfather used to say, "The best snipers aren't remembered, just missed when they're gone." I'm starting to believe him. 3 days after the Ridge op, I was pulled into a joint debrief with CENTCOM reps flying in from the green zone. Unusual, especially for a shooter. Usually they just want the coordinates and ballistics logged, not the face behind the scope. The debrief room was clean, cold, and silent. 3 men sat across the table, one in a Navy uniform, one Army intel, and a third in civilian clothes that screamed agency. Graves was standing in the back, arms crossed, unreadable. The man in the middle, the agency one, spoke first. "Staff Sergeant Cade, your file's been reviewed by Joint Command. Your performance on Operation Wildlight was unconventional." He slid a tablet across the table. It showed thermal drone footage from the ridge, 8 impacts, 8 drops. Time-coded. GPS overlaid. Flawless. You neutralized 8 targets in under 90 seconds. No support. No drones. No counterfire. I didn't respond. There was no question yet. The Navy officer leaned forward. "Why didn't you call in for confirmation before opening fire?" "Didn't have time, sir. The team on the ground was about to be overrun." The Army rep squinted at his notes. "We weren't even sure you were deployed in that sector." "I wasn't supposed to be," I said. "Captain Graves made the call." The civilian nodded slowly. You understand, this kind of autonomy is unusual. Graves finally spoke. She made the call because no one else could. I backed her play, and it worked. The three looked at one another. Then the Navy guy sighed. You're not standard issue, Cade. No, sir. You didn't go through our schools, our channels. But we've got colonels in Baghdad asking who the hell took down half a cell with 8 shots and disappeared before the dust settled. I didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. Command's interested, he added. They want to track performance. Possibly assign you to a rotating support unit. Quiet detail. High-value targets. I shook my head. No, sir. That caught them off guard. I don't miss, I said quietly. Because I choose my targets. I plan my ground. I know my rifle and my spotter. You move me into a rotation, and I'm just another trigger. I'm not here for someone else's scoreboard. The civilian studied me like I was a code he hadn't cracked yet. You think you're doing more good this way? I know I am. They dismissed me 10 minutes later. Didn't say yes or no. Didn't issue orders. Just, let me go. Outside, Graves caught up with me near the barracks. You could have played along, he said. I could have, I answered. He grinned, just a little. I've been in this long enough to know when I'm in the presence of someone better. You don't need me to explain that in there. But I figured you'd like to know. You've got friends now. I nodded. I've got Knox. You've got Command too. They're watching. But this time, not to bury you. To learn from you. That night, I cleaned my rifle in silence. My hands moved by memory. Each groove, each brushstroke a ritual. I'd built something out here. Not in rank, not in medals. In reputation. The kind that spreads without permission. By the time I shut the case, I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't about proving anything anymore. This was about staying sharp, because now, they knew what I could do. And they were going to keep asking for it. The mission logs kept stacking. By the end of week 6, I'd logged 5 more confirmed kills. 3 interdictions, 2 Overwatch deployments. Knox and I had stopped using full sentences. We were operating in hand signals and half-breaths. The kind of rhythm that only happens when 2 people trust each other completely under pressure. My number was 53 now. Graves pulled me aside one night. He didn't ask. Just handed me a sheet of paper with official letterhead. It was a Bronze Star recommendation, full justification attached, with statements from SEAL team leads, Knox, and even the battalion CO. This one won't get lost, he said. I made sure of it. I stared at the paper a long time before folding it once and sliding it into my log book behind the last ballistic chart. Thanks, sir, I said. He nodded. You ever going to hang it? No, sir. He looked at me like he understood completely. Later that night, I sat on my bunk and unfolded another piece of paper. Smaller. Older. 16. Still there. Still his handwriting. Still the only number I ever measured myself against. Not because I needed to pass it, but because it kept me grounded. My grandfather hadn't been a legend. He was a man who did his job quietly and then went home to raise cattle and teach a girl how to shoot prairie dogs off fence posts. But the first time I made a kill at 1,500 yards, I remember thinking, he would have understood this. He wouldn't have asked why I was there, just whether I hit what I aimed at. There's peace in that. In knowing someone didn't need your explanation to believe in your ability. They've started calling me Red 6 in the tasking queue. A quiet code, borrowed from an old call sign I never used outside of the field. No one says Cade on the comms anymore. They don't have to. In the ops tent, there's a new board with confirmed kills and successful missions logged by unit and shooter. It's unofficial, just chalk lines and initials. Someone put mine up there in red. It reads, R6, 53 confirmed. Under it, someone wrote a quote in small letters. The best aren't loud. They're just final. I didn't ask who wrote it. Didn't need to. The name doesn't matter. The work does. And I was still just getting started. We were running recon along Route Delphi, dry basin terrain, wide open, bad for ambushes unless you were the one planning them. The mission was standard. Identify a suspected weapons transfer hub, mark coordinates, exfil without contact. But it never works out that clean. Halfway through the op, the SEAL team reported incoming foot traffic, 24 armed personnel, moving fast, sweeping flanks. Our overwatch was in place, but the angle was shallow and the wind was shifting. Knox checked our solution. It's dirty, he muttered. We don't have time for a full fix. I glassed the trail. Forget perfection. Give me 60% certainty. He gave me 62. That's the thing about shooting from range. People think you wait for perfect. But sometimes, you don't get perfect. You get good enough and trust the years behind your trigger. We adjusted for the crosswind and target movement. First round, center mass. One of the point men folded like a dropped bag. Second, rear scout. He never even saw the flash. Then the others started shouting, firing blind into the hills. They had no position, no wind reading, no optics, just panic. I kept working the bolt, slow and steady, choosing each shot like I was picking locks. The third man was raising a shoulder launcher when I caught him low in the ribs. By the time the SEALs reached their fallback LZ, 7 were down. None of them ours. Command scrambled ISR feeds from a Reaper drone that had been circling the next province. The footage they sent to Graves that night was sharp, high-def, crystal clear. Graves called me in. He had the frame paused on a still. You hit this guy while he was mid-sprint across cover. He was 2 seconds from getting behind a blast wall. I nodded. You adjusted for motion? No, I said. I waited until he adjusted for mine. Graves blinked. I let it sit there. That's something my grandfather taught me, not in words, but in the way he moved. He'd say, don't react to the target. Make the target react to you. Then shoot the moment they think they're safe. I left Graves flipping through the footage. I didn't need to watch it again. I'd lived every frame in the scope. Back at the barracks, someone had updated the chalkboard in the ops tent. R6, 60 confirmed. I hadn't even cleaned my rifle yet. The SEALs started a new tradition after that mission. When we got back from a clean op, no friendly casualties, confirmed HVTs neutralized. They'd set a mug of black coffee on my cot. No words. No salute. Just the coffee. I never asked why, but I always drank it. And I always cleaned my rifle first. The mission came down sudden, direct from brigade-level command. High urgency, 1-day prep window. A target who hadn't shown his face in 3 years, Majid Zarif, known intel broker, former Quds force liaison. Every time he surfaced, lives went missing. He was dangerous not because he fired shots, but because he knew where to point others. Now he was here, less than 50 miles from Camp Kimber, and he was exposed. The brief was tight, a window of 30 minutes. He'd be traveling in a black SUV, driver unknown, security light but evasive. Route was mountainous, no drone coverage due to weather interference. We had one shot, literally. Graves didn't hesitate. It's yours, Cade. Knox and I choppered in under cover of cloud. The ridge we selected had just enough elevation to overlook the switchback road below. The wind-up there wasn't ideal, swirling cross-sections every 30 meters. Range was 1,710 meters. The shot would stretch everything I knew. I ran numbers in silence, mapping wind patterns in my mind, memorizing gust cycles. We had 10 minutes until the vehicle hit our corridor. Knox didn't speak. He knew not to break the mental loop. I lined up, eye in glass, breathing slow. Then I felt something, not nerves, not doubt. Just weight. Weight of everything behind this shot. Not just 60 confirmed kills. Not just the mission. The years. The quiet. The effort it took to never ask for recognition, but always deliver results. The ridge fell quiet. Then the SUV appeared, moving faster than predicted. I adjusted quickly. Knox murmured data. Distance, 1,713 meters. Wind, left 6, decaying. Correction, 8. 3 mils elevation, 1, 2 windage. I exhaled. Zarif was in the passenger seat, window cracked. Knox called it. Send. The rifle kicked. 3.9 seconds later, the vehicle jerked left. The driver slammed brakes instinctively. The engine smoked. But there was no second round needed. Passenger door. Clean strike. Behind the jawline. Out through the neck. The window glass spidered. Zarif never saw it coming. Back at base, Graves met me on the LZ. He didn't speak at first. Just handed me something. A packet. My award had been upgraded. Distinguished Service Medal. Rare. Almost unheard of at my rank. He said, I didn't ask for this. They did. I opened the folder and saw the citation. Language I'd seen 100 times, but this time, it was mine. It spoke of precision under fire. Strategic disruption. Single-handed elimination of a critical target. And it ended with a line that felt heavier than the medal itself. Her actions have redefined the standards for strategic precision marksmanship in combat operations. I closed it. Doesn't change the rifle, I said. No, Graves said. But it changes who listens when you speak. That night, I sat outside again, rifle beside me, coffee mug in hand. The sky was darker than usual. I unfolded that old scrap of paper once more. 16. I didn't cry. I didn't talk. But I did smile. Because for the first time, I felt like the weight was being shared. Not taken. Not transferred. Just understood. The rotation ended 3 weeks later. I'd logged 65 confirmed kills by then. 3 bronze stars. 1 distinguished service medal. My name was etched onto more mission reports than I could count. But that wasn't what stayed with me. What stayed were the silences. The moments before each shot, when the world shrank down to scope and breath and trust. The feeling of laying in the dirt beside Knox, trading barely audible wind calls that meant life or death. The stillness after impact, when I knew without needing confirmation that the bullet had landed true. I rotated out quietly. No ceremony. No applause. That's how I wanted it. Back at the airfield, Graves met me before I boarded. He handed me a new logbook, black leather, clean pages, name embossed in gold leaf. "You've earned something fresh," he said. I took it, then shook his hand for the first time. Not out of formality, but respect. "You ever get tired of shooting?" he asked. "No," I said, "but I'm ready to be quiet in a different way." He nodded like he knew exactly what that meant. I left Camp Kimber without looking back. Back home in Utah, the land was colder than I remembered, the wind sharper. The range behind my grandfather's ranch was still there, though the fencing was rusted and the wood posts leaned under snow. I unpacked the M2010 and set it beside the old M40 he left me. One modern, one legacy. Then I took out the worn scrap of paper, faded and soft at the edges. 16. My number was 4 times that now, but the paper still mattered. Still reminded me where it started. In town, a recruiter I once argued with saw me at the diner. He asked if it was true, if the stories were real. I told him, parts of them. He asked if I'd ever go back. I said, if they call, and it's right, I'll answer. But I don't need to prove anything anymore. He laughed. They say you were the best. I looked out the window at the snow brushing the hills. No, I said. I was just quiet long enough for someone to listen. Thank you for watching. Have a great day.